Hello, everyone, and welcome to this another of our Fireside Chat. This is where we meet each Tuesday at this time, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's where we have those conversations. It's where we learn and it's where we grow. Let me pause to welcome everyone who is joining us for the first time tonight. We are delighted to have you. Thank you so much for coming. Those who have always been here, thank you so much for continuing to come. The Fireside is a safe place. And so every Tuesday we meet here at this time, 8 p.m. Eastern. We have another both interesting and exciting guest each Tuesday who come to share with us on their own area of expertise. And tonight is no different. But before I go any further, I just want to pause to acknowledge Purpose Coaching and Training Solutions. Purpose Coaching and Training Solutions has been our sponsor for the program for the last 16, almost 17 months. And we are happy that they have done this. They invite you to connect with them on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. Purpose Coaching and Training Solutions is a coaching and training solutions company operating from Fort Lauderdale in Florida. Thank you so much. Tonight we have with us Coach Reea Rodney. Coach Rodney is joining us tonight to talk about one of those topics that most persons would be interested in at some point in their lives. I believe that every person has a book inside of them because they do have a story. And every person can tell their story and get it into a book. That's a legacy. That's something that we can leave here when we leave for our children and our children's children. And so tonight, we really want to thank Coach Rodney for coming in here to discuss with us this very important topic. I am going to bring her to the spotlight so that I can read her bio, because this is a very interesting lady, someone that you will want to be close to as at tonight. And so I'm going to bring Coach Rodney into the spotlight at this time. Coach Rodney, Reea Rodney, is a self-publishing consultant and a best-selling author. She's a certified parent and children life coach, cognitive and behavioral coach, a motivational speaker, and she's the CEO and founder of Dara Publishing LLC and Dara Wisdom and Empowerment Coaching. She has been featured on ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, and is very passionate about the work she does and the lives she impacts. Reea has been spreading the word of empowerment through her books, coaching programs, and speaking events, and she wants to help others to do the same. She believes that everyone has a unique story that is waiting to be unleashed, and her desire is to help them tap into their power source and create an impact. As a life coach and mentor, Reea feels inspired by the proverb, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach the man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. She believes that knowledge is powerful and it is the key to success. As a result of this philosophy, she seeks to mentor and coach aspiring authors and that they can learn the ins and outs of publishing after the completion of their first book. This gives them the ability to not only learn how to do it on their own for future publications, but also to monetize their knowledge for future gain by helping others as well. Reea is a #1 on an international best-selling author, and she has successfully self-published 21 books, which includes her children's storybooks, children coloring and activity books, personal development journals, and self-help books for parents and educators. Reea has also written and published and produced 24 personal development programs, program modules, as well as numerous parenting blog articles, making her an expert in her field. In addition, she has helped over 25 authors this year become not only published authors, but also #1 best-selling author. Coach Reea Rodney, welcome to the Fireside Chat.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. This is such an impressive bio. And I want to ask you, what motivated you, first of all, to get into the self-publishing business and all of these other things that you're doing here? What is your, or was your main motivation?
First, I just want to say greetings to everyone who's on tonight. And, you know, I am a woman of faith. And I will never water down that. It doesn't matter what platform I am on. And the first inspiration to even pick up a pen and start writing was from God. And during that time, I was ill. I had a disease that had no cure. Luckily, I'm healed today. And they used the keyword heal because I was healed. And I really wanted to be a pediatric nurse. And because I was so sick and in so much pain, I couldn't have that. That couldn't be part of my reality. And then one day God told me, he said, write for your healing. And I was so baffled because I hate reading, and I say that with a passion. And I do have a speech impediment, although you may not hear it at times. This day I've learned how to work on that. And I just didn't see myself fitting into that mold. But when God told that to me, he said to me to write, I felt I had nothing to lose. And so I decided I'm going to write. And with God's guidance, I wrote my first book. In doing so, God said to me that I was going to write books. So even though I had no knowledge about having a company, being a CEO, I did launch that company. And, you know, that was in 2016. In 2017, I've written and published 9 books, but I was also healed that year. So definitely my motivation to do this really came from God's guidance. I felt propelled because at that time I was ill, and I saw this as perhaps being my way out later on when I'm unable to work as a source of income. And really just that desire to create a legacy for my family. And that really motivated me every day to get up and to be the best me. And the more I did, the more I felt inspired, and the more I challenged myself to do more. And as time goes by, I inherited all these different titles along the way.
Wow, that is really impressive. I'm hearing an accent, and that accent sounds so much like the Caribbean. Am I correct?
Oh, definitely. I am from Trinidad, and I'm just so thankful. I'm so proud to be a Trinidadian. And, you know, I am, you know, although I live here in the US, I am from Trinidad, born and grew up. I've been living here for 15 years now, and I don't ever try to change the way I speak. My accent is always present.
Thank you so much. I heard you talk about you started your company back in 2017, 16, somewhere there, and you have published 9 books in a year. And since then you have been doing this. What have been some of the most impactful moments for you over this time? there must have been some moments that gave you that wow.
Well, first off, I have to go all the way back to my childhood. As a child, I had a speech impediment. I never liked reading. I was picked on, I was bullied, and I never liked speaking out in public. So when God gave this mandate to me and I decided to be obedient, one of the most impactful things for me during that time was when I accomplished that task of actually writing this book, but not only writing it, but publishing it. So I'll definitely say holding that physical book in my hands, it was such an impactful moment for me. And also having the ability to read my book. I remember when I had to do my book launch and I had to read that book. And I was so terrified that I wouldn't be able to speak properly the way I would want to, because of my speech impediment, because I stutter. And I even prepared for that by having an audio, but God was so good to me because I was faithful and I was able to read that book without stuttering. So that was the moment when my confidence grew. And I realized, wow, I could take on this, I could do this. And then seeing the impact that my words and my books have on the life of not only children, but also adults, it also just further reinforced in me my calling, because I was actually learning about myself and growing as an individual. And I realized, in ministry, there are many people who are called to be on the pulpit, who are called to work in the churches, but I always knew my ministry is to impact people. And I'm able to positively do that because even the clients that come my way are people who are broken. So that was such an impactful moment for me. And of course, discovering my gifts and my purpose. I did not know I had I didn't know I had that creativity within me. I didn't know I was able to even write, let alone really meet people at the level at where they are and help them to really discover who they are. So those are some of the things over the 5 years that have really helped me to grow as an individual. Just seeing the way my work impact the lives of others.
Powerful story indeed. If you have just come into the room, we are talking tonight with Coach Reea Rodney. Coach Reea has done so many things, as you've heard her just said. She is, amongst all of those things, a self-publishing consultant. And that's one of the main reasons why we brought her in here tonight. Because inside of every person, there is a story. And some of these stories need to be heard. Some of these stories need to be brought to the fore. So we want Coach to walk us through, and as I ask her the different questions, I want you to feel free to go ahead and make some notes, because you're going to be talking to her after this. You're going to be calling her and you are going to say, I have a story that I need you to help me get published. I have some notes that I need you to help me get out there. So I want you to make sure you have your pen and pencils and paper ready to take notes as we talk with Coach Reea this evening. And I want to ask you a question. So you are a self-publisher, and the little I know about publishing, when I wrote my first book, let me say I hired a publisher then. How is self-publishing different from the traditional publishing house? How is it different? What you do different from the publishing house?
First, I want to say, while I own my own publishing company, I do not consider myself to be a publisher. I am a self-publishing consultant. So there are two different types of publishing. As we know, we have the self-publishing, right? Which is where you undertake all the responsibility of getting that book published. And when we talk about undertaking all the responsibility, we're talking about the writing, the editing, we're talking about the formatting, the full creation of that book, in addition to also the financial aspect of it, right? So you really bear all of the responsibility. Now, while I use the term all of the responsibility, you don't have to physically be able to be capable of doing everything, because you would hire an editor, you could hire people who could help to get that together. Most of the clients hire someone like me, a consultant who could guide them, or a book coach.
Coach Reea, one moment, please. You're on mute. Go ahead and unmute yourself for me, please. I'm so sorry. Go right ahead.
It's okay. When we talk about traditional publishing, we are talking about the process of working with a third-party publisher to release that book. So when we talk about when we look more into that, it means that you are hiring somebody who are going to first, a traditional publisher, they fund the cost. So you don't have to come out of pocket. And for many, that may be a good thing, right? They also have the different platforms that they're going to put the book on. But it's so important to know that, first off, your book is going to be imprinted under their company. It's going to be copyright under their company, right? They are also going to be paying you a very, very small percentage. So here you wrote this book. This book have the potential to be a great revenue generator, but you're not getting that because you basically give it to someone. Now, another thing with traditional publishing is that it takes forever to be seen. You need to get an agent. You have to go through a long process. You could wait years, and I mean years, before someone acknowledges you. And if they do decide they want to publish that book, in the end, I think most people feel not satisfied because your revenue could be between $1 to $2, which is very limited. So while self-publishing, you have to come out and spend that money upfront. It's so important to see this as an investment, that you are investing in yourself, you are investing in a business, because you need to come in with a mindset that this is a business, because this is something that you have that you're going to be selling, right? And you're going to be getting revenue. So once you have that mindset to understand that you are investing in yourself, for me, when I first started, I was sick, and it became to me my healing place, my therapy. So I didn't care how much money it cost, it was helping me. For you, it might be that you want to generate income. So then you're going to make sure you have this great book that you could do so. So, this is the difference with it. There are cons and pros, but self-publishing is no longer frowned upon on the way it used to years ago. Everybody wants now to publish their book themselves, and it has such excellent books out there that are written by everyday people, right? That are great revenue builder. So I would always say self-publishing is the way to go, because first off, you have full, complete control of your work. And that is most important. And you get the revenue, all 100% of your earnings when you sell a book.
Thank you so much for explaining that. And I noticed that some persons came into the room after we last spoke. If you just came in, we're talking with Coach Reea Rodney, who is a self-publishing consultant. She's a businesswoman, and she's also a coach in so many different areas. We were just talking about the difference between a traditional publisher and self-publishing. And now I do understand, because a traditional publishing, you get what you call royalty from that. But you can get all the proceeds of your book if you go through self-publishing, or most of it, let me say that, from your book. Am I correct?
Sorry. I just wanted to just make this clear. So even when you're self-publishing, you're still going to have a platform that you have to self-publish on. Now, some people choose to create their book and find a local printer and only print copies of their book. So they don't have a platform like KDP or Ingram Spark. This platform will allow your book to be on Amazon and also many other online platforms. You could go that route and you will be getting 100% of your earning. When you use Amazon, let's say KDP, you get 60% royalty on your book. So you're still not getting 100% with KDP, but you have to understand that they are taking your book, they are doing the printing, they are doing the distribution, they're doing the customer service. They're doing all these things, and they're also planting you on various platforms. So on KDP, or if you book it on Amazon, you will be getting 60% and they will be getting 40%. That is still way, way much more that you will get from a traditional company. So if you were to have a book that's selling for $15, you will be getting a little over $5 royalty. If that same book was in the traditional company, you will be getting like $1, maybe $2. But you also have the ability to sell your book individually off of KDP, off of Amazon, and get 100% royalty. So you have the best of both worlds. And it's so important that you have your book on Amazon because they have thousands, or I should say millions of people right there who are already there. So you have the best of both worlds, once your book is published on KDP. You could print your author copies and sell and get 100% of your proceeds, as well as you could have your book on the platform as well. And your book is being presented on Amazon to numerous people who will buy your book, people that you wouldn't have come in contact with, and you'll get 60%.
Thank you so much for explaining that. But I hear someone saying, self-publishing sounds like it's for persons who are just starting out. People who have written several books and can get it marketed by their traditional company or a marketing company, then self-publishing would not be the thing for them. What would you say to that person?
Can you repeat that? I didn't quite get what that question was.
Okay, so I hear someone saying that self-publishing is not for everyone. If you're just starting out, then self-publishing would be the way to go. But if you have written several books and you can afford to pay for a traditional company to market your book, then that would be the best way to go. What would you say to that person?
Well, first off, traditional company, you don't have to pay them. You have to go through the long, rigorous process of getting an agent, which is one process by itself. And then they will pitch your book to pitch your manuscript to a traditional company. If they decide that this book is worth their time and effort, they will be the one funding the book, but understand that they'll be the one having full, complete creative power over the book. And it's no longer your book, so to speak. Self-publishing, it's for anyone. There are people who went the traditional route, but realized shortly after it's not the route for them, because you could be published by a traditional company and go to nowhere. Don't get your book still isn't on the map, right? But I would say self-publishing, it's for anyone. But you got to be self-motivated. You got to be willing to learn the process. You got to be willing to invest in yourself and in your dream, because the investment is going to come out of your pocket, right? You got to be able to have the mindset to see this as a business, because if you see it as a business, then you will show up professional. You'll understand how you have to position yourself. You'll understand the necessary work that needs to take place. And you have to be willing to fund your dream. There are lots of people, I have clients who come in, they really want to write this book, but they don't want to be on social media. They see talking to people and ask them to buy their book as begging. That mindset gotta go, right? It is for anyone, but you have to be able to do the work, be motivated, put yourself out there, right? And understand that it's an investment, but you could get it back. I show my clients how they could get back the money that they make, that they invest into paying me and creating their book within perhaps the first 3 to 6 months of that book coming out. Anything after there is interest, but you got to do the work. And that is the difference with self-publishing. You got to do the work, but keep in mind, a traditional publisher could publish you and you still got to do the work. You still have to tell people, hey, I have a book out there. And when you market and you put yourself out there, you are getting less coming back into your pocket. So you got to decide which is the right route for you and what it is you want to do with this book.
Excellent information. Thank you so much again, Coach Rodney. If you're in the audience and you are thinking about writing your book, or if you have some script somewhere, please make sure you're making notes of what she's saying, because you're going to need to talk to her. And my next question to her, if someone has some notes, they've started to make some notes, they want to write their story, they want to write a book, they want to start, how can you actually help them to start from scratch? What is the process that you use to help someone? I know you're a consultant, but how do you help someone to start from scratch to write their story? I know there are going to be several questions coming after this, so I invite you to start putting your questions in the chat from now so that she can answer most of them that we don't get to ask her right now. So how can you help someone to start from scratch if they want to write their story?
Okay, so that's a really good question. So I have several packages, and one of the packages that I offer is actually for people who want to write a book and they haven't started writing that book. Now, for me, I believe your mindset is so important. So before I even start to work with a client, I need to know the why. They need to know the why. Why do you want to write this book, right? They also need to know, who is this book for? So we have to go through more or less what I call a diagnostic of this book, right? That's so important before you even get to writing this book. And with me doing that as well, I also do mindset coaching, because you will be amazed that even though people want to do something, they don't see themselves as what it is they're aspiring to do or be. So we have the imposter syndrome. So we have that where, you know, they want to be an author. Some of them even write that book and it's published, but they still can't get themselves to really see themselves embodying that role. And all of these are things that are going to affect the writing process. It is going to affect them being committed, and it's going to affect even after the book is published, how that book is really going to work, or I should say produce on the market. So for me, when I work with a client from scratch, we really go through the mindset part of it, because I need them to really be able to see that they are more than capable and they are more than qualified. Now, I help clients write their book in 90 days. And that's a challenge. So you have to have that mindset. And I put that urgency in it, because when you let things delay, you could switch from your mind. And we let the world and everything really throw us, you know, like just have us all over the place. Also, I can't be a writing coach forever, because then you have to pay me a whole lot of money, because time is money. So I do have a plan where I sit with my clients and we really go through, you know, the various different steps. I can't really break everything down here. But when we get to the writing part, I would sit with them. We will decide, come together with what this book is about. What is the need of this audience? Who is the audience? We will then do what I call a mind map, where we will mind map each chapter. We'll think about what the title is about. Some people would say, you could forget about the title and let that be at the end. And I don't agree. Your title is so important. It's a very strong keyword in your book being established on Amazon. So I want us to have some concept of what we want this book to be named, and also a subtitle. And that is how we're going to build. So we are going to build each and every chapter. We're going to mind map each chapter. And what I mean about that, let's say this person was someone who lost someone and they went through the 5 stages of grieving. And now they want to write this book to really help empower people who are grieving. Now we know it's bargaining, it's depression, it's acceptance. So each of them might be a chapter. So let's say chapter 3 is depression. What do you want to write in that chapter? What topics do you want to put in there? What questions do you want to ask your reader to get them to really identify? We're going to mind map that chapter, which is so important. When we mind map, or you could call it outline, then the other thing I'm going to do is that we're going to establish the word count. How much pages or how much word you want to have in this book. And I'm going to do my maths. and break it down into how many words you need to write per day. And then I'm going to further do a math and break it down to how many hours you need to spend on that. So now we're really defining everything, right? We're taking this big goal and we're breaking it into small goals so that you could see yourself being able to fulfill these goals. Of course, I am your number one accountability person because you are paying me. Aside from that, I'm going to have you select 2 or 3 more people that are within your reach. Because believe it or not, people pay their money and then they don't show up. I have clients who have already paid and I'm waiting for them to deliver and they are missing in action. I could call that phone and send email. I can't get them to do what they don't want to do, right? That's why, again, the mind is so important. So I go through all these different steps and then we get to where you write. And we relieve ourselves from not being perfect. It's okay if grammar or English is not your major. And with that outline, even if you were to come up against writer's block in chapter 1, you could hop to chapter 2 or 3 because you have an outline. So you could continue. You don't need to remain in that one spot. And then we meet each week for 8 weeks, once a week, as we work through that writing process. And then we transition into the publishing part, which I take full control over from there. So I would say for anyone who wants to write a book, you know, even right now, even if you're not working with someone, ask yourself, why do I want to write this book? Who is this book going to be for? What is the purpose of this book? How is this book going to change lives? And also, any book that you write, it's a money magnet. We're going to change lives, but we're going to make money doing it. So how can this book transition into something that is profitable? It could be a speaking gig, right? You could create your signature speech off of that book. It could be a course. It could be a program. So, you know, all of the different things that I work with my clients within that package to help them to get that book. And we get it done in 90 days. Unless they decide to drop out or, you know, give up on themselves, which I believe wouldn't happen. Delay is not denied.
Wow, thank you so much for that. That is a step-by-step process. I hope you are taking the notes because you can start from scratch and have your book ready in 90 days, written in 90 days, ready for publishing. She walks you through the process. She has a one-on-one with you every week. She helps you to craft your own story. That's huge. That's huge what you're doing there. Because
and Janice, you know, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, I wanted to say, you know, this idea that people feel that they need to take 10 years to write a book, that is so long gone, right? We have technology that could help you to write a book like in 1 day. Because once you do the right step and you outline your book, you could speak your book, right? You know, so there doesn't mean if you get your book written and published in 90 days that you rush this book, right? Once you sit down and you do what I call the diagnostic of this book and you know what this book is about and you really break it down and you know everything about this book, and then there's so many other steps that I didn't even touch on, your book will be ready. So do not think that you're rushing it. Don't think that your book needs to be take a year or 2 to come into existence. No. You just need to know what your book is about, who it serves, and have a very, very, very good editor in hand. Because they're going to take your basic and make it into a masterpiece.
I'm happy you talked about the editor because I was just going to ask you that question. Do you also have an editing team? Because if you're taking this person from start to finish, do you also help them with editing?
So I offer editorial support. And yes, I do have 2 people on my team who is amazing. But when we talk about editing, I take myself out of that. Now I give you all the guidance. I would look into your book. I would support you. But you are the one who have to tell me it is ready. And here, what do I mean by that? First off, I can't sit down and read every client's 50,000 page manuscript. You can't pay me enough for that. That's not my area of expertise. When your book go to the editor, There's several layers of editing, but I will guide you where you will have the more affordable approach. So you have an editor, and that editor will edit your book. And that editor is a professional, but that editor is human. So that means when they spend a considerable amount of time working on your book, there's possibility that there might be a word that might be misspelled, there might be a word that is missing, they might have some little minor little things that need fixing. The next step when your book is finished editing, it needs to go to a proofreader. A proofreader is someone who's coming with this to this book with fresh eyes. Remember, the more we spend time with this book, we are going to start to read by memory and not by sight. So oftentimes you might be reading something and there's an error in front of your face, but you will not pick it up. That is why the next step is proofreading. When you proofread that book, probably once or twice, and you're sure, then we go on to doing the proof copy where we have a physical book in our hand. Believe it or not, proof copying digital versus a print, it's different again. You might see some flaws in the print as well. And after we go through that, then we go to publishing. So my client has the responsibility to read their book. They have the responsibility to have two proofreaders, whether it's within your family, people who you know are smart enough to read it and know if there's a word missing or a gap, right? That's your responsibility. And children book, I love, so I'll read your children book. I'm not going to read your novel because I don't have 3, 4, 5 days to do so. But once you go through that and you say to me, Reea, it is ready, then we move to the next phase. And the reason why I think most everybody does that is because if by chance there's an error or some sort of word or something that was missed, you cannot come and blame me. That's your responsibility. So it doesn't matter who you go to, you have to proofread your book and you have to say to your editor, it's ready. I'm good with it now. And then you pay them. But I guide you through. I make sure you follow all the steps. And if by chance there happen to be an error, it's not the end of the world. I've read really good books from professional people and find an error too. Your book could be fixed, you know? So we also have to release ourselves from that. But again, I do have people who edit and I know all the format and I'll guide you through to make sure that your book is really good. We go through rungs of reading. Or I make sure you go through rungs of reading. Children book, I love to read, so I get my hand into the children book.
Wow, this is both potent and critical information that we're getting here tonight about the book publishing, all the ins and outs of it. And I have read several books that I come upon a little error here and there, but I would say nothing to write home about. As best as you try, sometimes even the best of books you see coming out with a simple error in it or two. And I would say they're still being sold. But I want to ask you another question. What if someone published a book? Let's say it's self-published and it's on Amazon and it's a month past, and the person said, "Wow, I didn't remember to put this in the book." What can I do? Can I take the book off and get that part put in it and then put it back onto Amazon? What's that process around there?
So most definitely, once you have full control of your book, because if you use a traditional publisher, or if you use those vanity press, the people who act like a traditional publisher, yet take your money to create the book, then it's on their imprint. They have control, you have no access to it, so you cannot do anything. I mean, you could bring it to their attention and it's up to them to want to. However, if you go the self-publishing route and you have full control of your account, there's always room for change depending on the situation. So I have had quite a few clients who had the book published, and perhaps I do a bestseller campaign. Perhaps these clients come to me to do that. And I always just look at the book and, you know, if I see there's some red flags there, I'll let them know. And there are times when I would advise them to unpublish their book and fix it. But I think that is something that you really need to think about. If you already spent a considerable amount of money on this book, and you know that you're not doing the work and you're not promoting it, do you want to come and pay somebody again to come and fix this book? Because that's going to be money, right? Because if you have access to the formatter, the person who put the book together, and if they still have that on their file, because after a while they will discard it, and it's just them going in and making a simple edit, then it's fine. I'll give you an example. I had a client who had a children's book. His book was put up very horribly. For some reason, his book was like this on Amazon. So when the book print, it have to open like that. There was a lot of things going wrong with his book. And he came to me. I had to unpublish his book and do it over, but we had to start the entire publishing process because he didn't have the written text. He didn't have access to anything, but he was really passionate about that book. So we rewrote the book. He already had the illustration and he had to pay my service fee, but to put the book together was just formatting, which is inexpensive, and a little bit of editing. So he was able to get that book up. So most definitely, that is always an option, right? That you could fix that book. You could work on that book. But you have to really do some soul searching and ask yourself, does it make sense to invest? It always makes sense to fix this book, but you have to look at the cost. Because when you spend the time and the money to fix it, you got to work this book, But I'll tell you this, if your book has flaws and if it's written poorly and there's a lot of grammatical error, people won't get past the second page, especially people who love reading. They are going to sum this book up as crap, I'm being honest. They're going to say that you didn't take pride in what you're doing. You did not do it the right way, and they will not be interested. And it have the people who will go and put a bad review, So that it's so important not to cut corners and go about it the right way so that you can have the success. But yes, you can unpublish that book and publish it back over, or you don't need to unpublish it. You could create over a new PDF and change it. The only time I unpublish it is if my client used Amazon free ISBN and they didn't have any knowledge with that. So if they want to use their ISBN in that moment, we are going to unpublish it and publish it over on their ISBN. So that is fine to do. But if it's your ISBN, you don't have to unpublish the book. We just have to create a new file and resubmit that new file. So we switch in the book.
Excellent information. Excellent information. We are going to be opening the floor in just about another 5 minutes or so that we can get all the questions, because I know there are many stories inside of many persons sitting in this room tonight. And we need to get those stories out. We need to get them into books. And as I listen to Coach Reea, it sounds to me like it is not such a hard process. It's not such a difficult thing to do. I have actually written 2 books. I have 14 more books in production, and I'm hoping to at least get another one out before the end of the year, because I've been writing most of these books for the last, say, 7 years or more. So the story is there inside of you. Don't keep it there. So Coach, I hear you talk quite a few times, you talk about the cost. I'm not asking you for exact figures, but at least somebody may be saying, what am I looking at to get a book published? I mean, you don't have to tell me the exact figures, but talk to us about what kind of cost is involved in this book publishing thing. And does it go by the number of pages, the type of book, or it's just a book?
When you look at a children's book, okay, if someone is going to work with me, which I advise all of you to do, by the way, because it's so important that you work with a professional. And before I just touch on the cost, I just want to say, when I published my first book, I hired someone. And I was thankful that I hired her, so I learned basic knowledge, but I went on to study and apply so I could do it on my own, which is what I'm doing now. And that was so important for me because I did not know anything, right? So of course, there is a fee to work with me. And I am a self-publishing consultant and book coach, and I do a lot of different things within my publishing. So I really take full control of the wheel. My cost or my fee, I always break it separate from the cost to create a book. So when you're looking at a children's book, the bulk of the money goes into the illustration. Editing doesn't cost a lot. Formatting is standard across the board, but your illustration is where the money is, right? So a children's book could cost anywhere between probably very close to $2,000, depending. Now, there's different tricks that most people may not know. Like even though I live in America, and I should, perhaps Uncle Sam will say, get people to work with me from America, I don't. I outsourced my illustrators. They are excellent, phenomenal people living in countries like India and Pakistan and Europe who works and create exceptional illustration. The beauty about that is that our money converts over there to a lot of money. So you will pay less than what you'll pay for US. So when someone works with me, they pay less for the illustration. $90, I might say, sometimes even 75 or 70, depending on what it is. And this is a full detailed illustration. Someone might say, well, I could go at Fiverr and get an illustration for $10 or for $20. That is not an illustration. That is them using graphic, that it might have one element or two elements, but I'm talking about a double spread, full double spread, which costs more than single spread illustration. So roughly about close to $2,000. And it could be a little bit less, and that includes your illustration. It includes your formatting, and it includes your ISBN and your editing. Now the ISBN, you could buy a single ISBN for $125, but I always advise my clients to buy the bulks, which is for $295. So technically you're paying $29.50. And for those of you who don't know, the ISBN, what is the back of the book is the identifier for the book. So every format has to have its own ISBN. If it's an audio, if it's an ebook, if it's a print. So it's roughly around that. Now, there are other things that you can invest money in, like your copywriting. It could also be a little bit less depending, but roughly around $2,000, give or take, depending on the book and the page, right? If you need 16, well, you could do between 10 of the illustration or 16, and depending on the type of book that you want to write. When we're dealing with chapter book, the main expense is the editing, because chapter books have thousands of words. And the editing is based on how good this book is written and what type of editing is required. So you could bring a book that is very poorly written and your editor could turn that into a masterpiece, but it will cost more. So if you want grammar, perhaps it's line by line editing, perhaps it's some content editing, you need to have the content develop a little bit. So editing a chapter book could go anywhere from $400 to $900. And that's on a good scale, right? The formatting and the rest of the things is much more affordable. So it's under $2,000 again. Again, it's depending on how many pages the book has, will require how much editing, right? Because a book that has 60,000 words will cost more than a book that has perhaps 40,000 words, right? And then also your book cover. Yes, you could go on Fiverr and you could outsource a book cover and pay probably $25 for it, but it's not professionally done. And there are different aspects that people are not aware of, and you cannot get the exact measurement of this book cover until your book is completely finished and edited, because the word count is needed. So when you go ahead of time to get this cover from Fiverr, yes, you have a cover, but when it's time to format it, you're going to have issue. And then your formatter is going to have to try to make up fake margins and lines. So roughly, give or take, under $2,000 to get your book published. To work with me, depending on the package that you take, could start as $1,200 and could go up to $2,200 depending on the packages that you take. And also if you pay full versus if you need to take a payment plan, because I do have payment plans, but that will have an additional cost on there. So I have 3 packages. I have my full service packages, and that is for a client who have already written their book, or perhaps you have at least 85% of this book written. So with that, I will take that book. There's some coaching that's going to come with that, and I will be managing and getting your book created. There's some clients, perhaps like me, who say, I want to write books and I want to take this and turn it into a business. So that client, they want to learn the basic ins and outs of publishing. So when they go to do book number 2 and 3, they could do it on their own. They don't need to hire someone like me anymore. And they have the likelihood of really putting out a good book, a good strong book. And as you do more and more and you study and you learn the ins and outs of publishing, you will get better. So that client, I am basically mentoring them. So that package does cost a bit more. That package ranges from $1,600. And again, if you're taking it full price, and with that, I am showing you how to publish. So we are going to be doing at least 6 coaching sessions where when I come on to create your account, to upload your book, I am teaching you everything and providing you with the recording. I also have a book that I've written, my 14-step to self-publishing blueprint. You will also get that for future reference. So it will help you as you go on. You have this blueprint as well as the recording and the natural knowledge, because I'm showing you. And then the most costly one is for clients who want to write their book and don't know how to and need accountability. Of course, this one is more demanding. I have to give more of my time. You're getting everything in this one because I do offer book coaching, and that is kind of included because I'm writing, I'm with you with this book from scratch. I'm going to give you all the techniques, everything in there. And we have 8 one-on-one sessions that we're going to do, which we are going to work on the writing aspect of this book. And then the other sessions, well, the rest of the time, I would be doing the creation of the book. Once it comes back from the editor, then I go on there. So you have me as your accountability person. I'm there to really build your mindset. I'm there to help you through the writing process. And I'm there to really help you to develop a really strong positive concept, because it's so important to me that when somebody comes to me to write a book, we ask ourselves, once we finish what this book can do for people, we need to ask what this book can do for you. And in knowing that, that is how we're going to know how to create this book. For example, I have a client that I talked to today, well, a potential client. She's looking over her contract right now. She has a dog that is a service dog, and he just passed, but she goes to tons of school and she takes the service dog because they service children in need, right? And as a result of that, she wanted the legacy to go on. So she wanted to write this book. She's also going to create a foundation. So when we're creating this book, we're going to share the story, not so much of the dog, but about how we can impact the children through the life of the dog. But at the back of the page, it's going to have a tribute to this dog. It's going to have about the nonprofit. It's going to have where you could go to if you want to give. Right? So we're really going to take this book and she's going to be building an empire with it. Right? So once you know what you want to do, if you know you want to go to the school and speak, then what does this book need to have in it? What does this book need to have in it? So you could go to school and say, hey, I've written this book, and this book, it teaches kids about such and such and such and such, and I want to be able to come to speak, right? So we're going to be writing that book in such to give you the outcome that you want, right? So that you could be beneficial. I saw someone ask if I am a ghostwriter. Unfortunately, no. I do like to write children's books, so sometimes I take the challenge on, not definitely writing my client's book, but this client that I have, she couldn't bring her wittiness out with this book. She couldn't find her child voice, and I eventually, I don't want to say write it, but I did wrote the book for her. But if you want ghostwriter, that is also something that's available. You don't have to do it on your own, but please know that a ghostwriter is extremely expensive. So you will have to, again, invest on yourself. There's a way in which you could go about it. I have someone who ghostwrite basic things. I've never had that person ghostwrite like a chapter book, but again, you could go on Fiverr and you have to do your research. Like if I have a client, I'll give them ways to go about finding that research. I'll help them with the dialogue. And you find someone who's affordable, who could at least get your thought out of your head and as best as you can, right? And you can find perhaps inexpensive people on Fiverr, but then you will still have to work to help fully develop it. But if you want someone who could really write that book really exceptional, know that you'll have to spend some money, but it'll be worth it. But ghostwriting is a process.
Thank you so much. You have heard from the expert, and I'm going to ask you one final question before we go out of here to take the questions and answers. So someone is saying, how can I connect with you? I've heard everything and I think I want to work with you. I believe we can start now. I have my manuscript or I'm just starting. How can persons connect with you?
So you can connect with me in various ways. First off, my website, it's www.dara, D-A-R-A, publishing.co, not com, it's not .com, .co. I could put it in the comments after. And you could email me at darapublishing@gmail.com. You could also, thank you so much for putting that in. You could also reach me by phone. My phone number is open to everyone. Probably one day I'll have to change that. 347-962-8363. You could also follow me on social media. I have several platforms under my publishing. So I am on Instagram at Dara Publishing, Facebook at Dara Publishing, or just look up Reea Rodney. I'm also on Twitter at Dara Publishing and LinkedIn and Dara Publishing. I don't do much work on LinkedIn, unfortunately, but I do have a page there, a platform there. So you'll be able to follow me there. Thank you, Lauren.
All right, thank you so much, Coach Rodney. We are going to be going into the audience right now. I'm going to be taking some of the questions that have come in, and I'm going to be reading some of the comments. And when the conversation is interesting, then we see what happens. We are at the hour, on top of the hour, but we're going to make sure that we take all of these questions and comments. And if you have any questions in the audience, we do invite you to raise your virtual hand so that we can also get your question, because this is where we build people and change lives. This is where we provide you with the information that you need in order to grow and to become the best person that you were created to be. So let's see, we have some congratulations coming in, and let's see what we have here again. Someone says knowing your why and having the right mindset is important. Someone says excellent questions. Let me see if there's any other questions. I started writing a book years ago, Broken but Not Shattered, which is still in manuscript form. But listening to you tonight, I'm inspired to finish it and have it published. So I will be contacting you. Wow, thank you so much for that. And I do love the topic, broken but not shattered. As you answered the question about the ghostwriter already. Someone also said, let's see. Okay. Another person said they do have a book. So you're going to be getting some contacts, Coach Rodney. Look out for those contacts. Let me see if there's any other questions coming. And if you have a question right now, it's a good time to go ahead and raise your virtual hand. I'm going to be taking them in just a moment. Someone says, excellent session, very informative. Thank you, Coach Rodney. And let's see if there's any other questions that we need to take before we go into the audience. I see that you help your clients to write and develop manuscripts. But since the boom of audiobooks, have you also made that pivot with your client?
No, I haven't pivot to audiobooks as well. As yet, I should say. Probably I might, but you know, there's an industry for everyone. Right now, I like working with my clients and getting them to get an actual book out. Before we even get to audio, you have to have the book. But most definitely, I do believe it's something that I want to do. And first, I'm going to do it with my own book. You know, put one of my book into audio, and then once I feel like it's something that I'm confident with giving as a service, then I would offer it. I will not give it until I feel that, you know, I'm good at it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have another question here. Okay, this is actually a comment. I started writing a book in 2014, pushed by my pain. And I am not finished as yet, but I'm inspired tonight to complete it. So that's another call for you again. How do you manage writer's block? How does one manage writer's block?
So remember, I shared about really outlining this book, mind mapping this book, right? So writer's block is common, you know, you just get stuck and you don't know what to do. And because you haven't mind mapped this book and you don't know where you're going, then you remain stuck. However, if you take the time to do the work before, mind mapping is like preparing your food before you actually cook it. Think about it, Thanksgiving, and you have your chicken to season, your vegetable to cut up, you know, so many different things. That is so much work before you could get to the fun part, which is to cook. But it's such an essential part so that once you start cooking, you could keep going and going until you finish. Think about mind mapping in that sense. So if you take the time to do that work before, it makes the writing process so much easy. So you mind map every chapter, what you want to write in that chapter. So let's just say you're in chapter 1 and you happen to feel like I'm a little stuck, which you really shouldn't, because mind mapping is when you put everything. It's like, think about it. I'm going to give an example. I published this book in August, and it's an anthology. And I created a list of question prompts, which is the outline for the chapter. And if you have that outline and you answer every prompt, you are writing it. If you answer every prompt, you are creating the outline for that chapter. So in the end, once every question is answered and you remove the questions and you just leave the basic answer, you already write that chapter. These prompts serve as it serves as that click in your mind to let you know what to write. So if you mind map, there's no way you could have writer's block, because you outline what you want to discuss or write in that chapter. But let's just say somewhere along the line you feel stuck, you could hop to another chapter and continue your writing process, so you don't need to be still and on pause. And I assure you that somewhere along the line, that inspiration, that creativity, that epiphany is going to happen, and you'll be able to get that spark to continue writing. So it's so important, if you want to prevent writer's block, spend the time before you start to write to really outline what you want to write in each chapter, right? So that you're following this outline and it's like you're answering these questions, so your content will flow.
Thank you so much for that. I'm going to change my screen view just a moment so I can take some questions from the audience and take the other few that are in the chat. Let me just quickly change my screen view so that we can get those questions, those hands raised in the audience. Thank you so much again, Coach. So I think I have another 2 questions right here in the chat, and I'm going to take these 2 questions. What are the top challenges What are the top challenges in writing a book or story? What are some things to avoid when writing?
Well, I always talk about knowing the why. So it's so important that you know what it is you want to write. Once you know that, then you have a clear idea. Secondly, you have to give yourself permission to fail, to not get it right. If you're a perfectionist, release yourself from that right now. Understand that this is a journey, this is your journey. It is so important that you set a date of completion. Because if we don't have a definite end goal, we could just continue, and never get to where we really want to be, right? So there's so many different things that could really hinder you. So it's so important that you really look from within. Everybody is different. Everybody's circumstances is different, right? Also, it's so important that you take some time to learn the basic. So you want to publish a book and you want to self-publish. And yes, you want to hire someone. But how would you know if that person is the right person if you don't know what to ask? They could shove anything down your throat and you'll just take it. Do your research. Try to have some knowledge of what is expected, of what it is you need to know, because knowledge is powerful. When you're hiring someone, make sure that you feel that connection with them. When I do consult with my client, I do it via Zoom. I want to see them. I want them to see me. I want to really feel them out. I want them to feel me out too, because we're going to be working together for some time. So really, don't just rush it. You want to get it done, yes, but do it the right way. These are some things that will help you to eliminate some of the challenges. But my biggest thing will be to learn the basic. Learn the basic and make sure that when you make your decision to self-publish, it's what you want to do. Also, remember, you're the one in charge of your trade. Other people could give advice. Take the advice that you feel is helpful. Leave the rest that is not there. Always be open to learning, but also be firm with your decision. You must be confident with the decision you make, or else you'll be like a yo-yo. Right? Because everybody will be telling you something different. So that's why you have to make sure you have some foundation knowledge.
Thank you so much. I like the part where you said that, put a timeline on it. And it was just yesterday that I wrote that. If you don't have a timeline, then things can just continue into eternity. Let's say that.
Yes.
But when you have a timeline, you have something that you're working towards. If there's any other questions in the audience, please go ahead and raise your virtual hand so that we can take those questions. Someone is asking, let me see. Someone is asking, so we have some more recommendations coming, very excellent information indeed, and excellent presentation. I believe that you had indicated this, but someone was asking about the cost of consultation, and I'm going to ask that person to please take off the phone number and the email address so that you can kind of give her the details offline, exactly what you want, so that she can give you a more firm price, firm cost. So please, consultation.
Consultation is free. So consultation is someone coming to meet with me, and we sit, we have a meeting via Zoom that is free of charge. And that is where I'll get to know about your book. You'll get to know about me, and we will discuss in depth the cost, because I will be able to give you the cost or guide you to a package that is suit your need. So for anyone who's interested, a consultation is free. I enjoy my consult because it's my opportunity to meet people, to share with them, and to really help them to feel like, hey, this could happen. So utilize the fact that you can have that consultation with me, so we could talk more one-on-one and get to know what it is you want to do, and we'll be able to know what is the best package for you.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, so that question is answered. How important is a forward to a book?
Well, a forward is usually written like in a chapter book or it's important, but it's not that important. It's really based on the book, right? If you're writing a memoir, a forward should supposed to be written by somebody who's very it might be a famous author, somebody who's very influential. So you could have a book and you could give somebody to write a forward, but how are they impacting that book, right? If you're writing a book about, let's just say, mental health, and you get a mental health professional like a doctor or somebody to write it forward, then it gives your book more credibility because this person is writing, it's like an endorsement. And they're like, this is a really good book. And it's like they're putting the stamp on it, right? When we self-publish, we more or less may not have like those famous people in our hands, but if you're choosing a forward, think of it must be somebody who has some sort of credential. And that will really help position your book and to help your book to be seen as an expert. I have a book that I actually wrote and I published and I unpublished it because COVID had came and I didn't start marketing it yet. So I quickly unpublished it. But in that book, it's about my parenting and the kids, and it's my life coaching book for parents and educators. And I had a doctor, a speech pathologist, write me a review. And I had somebody else, a principal, write me a forward. Just those two people alone add so much power to that book because I could say, Dr. So-by-so wrote the forward. Or, it brings more credibility. But it's not for every book, but for the book, once you're going to use it, make sure it's somebody who has some credibility. So you could boast on that credibility and get people to be interested in buying your book.
Thank you so much for that information again. Go ahead. Is there someone in the audience that had a question, comment? Jennifer, did you have a question or comment? Thought I saw your microphone unmuted earlier. Is there anyone else who has a question for Coach Rodney? Because this was really, really excellent information that was given here tonight. So if you're in this room, you have no excuse of not knowing what to do next. You got the step-by-step instructions as to how to get your book written and published. Go ahead, Ms. Sanderson.
Well, it's not a question, but just a comment. I just want to say, great presentation, Coach Reea. Very detailed, and the step-by-step. So if we had any doubt in terms of the approach, the step in order to bring our story to life, we actually heard it tonight. So thank you very much for this great presentation and this detailed information, step-by-step, to bring our story to life. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And I just want to say, if you guys visit my website, the info is there. On the first page, if you scroll down, I do have where you could sign up and get a free copy of my 7-step publishing, I think it is. So it gives you those 7 steps. Of course, the first 1 to 6 step is really about the writing aspect. And the 7th step is hiring a coach. But it's really good information. So you could go and you could sign up for that and it will come into your email like almost immediately. So that's like my free gift for people who come onto my website. It's on the very first page, on the home page, just scroll down to the bottom.
Thank you so much. We have done it again. Tonight we have brought another guest in here that has given you so much information that you can start using tonight, tomorrow, as quickly as possible. When we do this, we want to ensure that when you leave out of here, you have the information that you come in here to get. And tonight is one of those nights that you can definitely say, I have received the information tonight that I came in here for. Coach Reea, I'm going to give you your final comments. I got another excellent storytelling, Coach Reea. Thank you so much for sharing. That's another comment in the chat.
Thank you,
So
Lauren.
your final words for the audience tonight. Thank you so much again for this chat around the fireside.
Okay, what I would like to say to you guys is this, right? One of my favorite quotes is by Winston Churchill: never let a good crisis go to waste. My life had been far, just filled with one crisis after the other. And I had a time when I was like, why God? Like, why me? We have the victim mentality. We ask ourselves, why? Now, looking back, I wouldn't trade any of those moments because it have made me into who I am. Every negative experience I've endured have molded me into this woman that I am today. Now, we don't always need to go through a crisis to write a book, but most definitely, we've all been through things in our life, and we went through that for a reason. I am a firm believer that we have, each of and every one of us have an audience that God has selected for us, and we have to serve them. And they are going to be served through our stories, through our experience, through our guidance. So I want to urge you guys, 2022 is right around the corner. And yes, there's so many people publishing. But one thing I love is that when I step out of my home and I look on my left, I see 2 delis. I look across the street, I see the crumb fried chicken. I look on my other side, I see the Chinese restaurant. I see 4 churches. I see 2 laundromats. And I go 1 block down and I see almost the same thing. And then I go 1 more block and I see almost the same thing. And what that tells me is that we all could get a piece of the pie. We don't need to compete. We don't need to even be concerned about who's already doing it. Just understand that you have an audience, a group of people that God has set aside for you, and they are waiting for you to birth your purpose. They are waiting for you to get up and to actually start planting those seeds of gifts that God has given to you. And whether that is through children's book are so life-changing, whether it's through a personal memoir or something that perhaps that you went through and that you survived, whether it's through a self-help book, something that you're able to impact and help others with. Doesn't matter what it is. If cooking is your thing and you know that that's your talent, now it's time to write that cooking book. You understand me? It doesn't matter what it is. A book is your business card. A book is your resume. A book is your key. And I want to urge you, as 2020 is coming, invest in yourself in a new way. Write that book and let that book be the beginning of a legacy. What I love about being an author is that these books don't expire. It's not going to spoil. And long after I am gone, they are going to be there. I'm creating a legacy. I'm creating generational wealth. And you can too. So I want to encourage you guys to dig deep. Some of you don't even need to dig deep. We all have a story. What is it? We all been through something in life. And I want to challenge you to write that book in 2022. And for those of you who have those books sitting on the shelf like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, it's time to dust it off and it's time to say, this is the time I am going to act. I'm going to put that word author in front of my name. And if you work with me, you are not only going to put author, you're going to put best-selling author. This year, I have made over 25 authors, best-selling authors, and I've made 11 authors who co-authored this book, international author. I don't just say it, I get it done. So I just want to encourage you guys to pick up your pen, so to speak, but please, not an actual pen, get on the typewriter and write this book. Okay, that's what I want to leave. You have that story. So let's bring it to life. It's time to birth it, and I'll be a midwife. I'll help you through the process.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much again, Coach Reea. This was an evening well spent. Great advice, create generational wealth by writing your own story. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so much once more for coming in here and stayed with us for this hour and almost hour and a half, but it was well worth it. Next week, this time,